very quick, before I get to this interview with Rachel Nielson, host of 3 in 30 Takeaways for Moms, and Monica Packer, host of About Progress podcasts, I wanted to make you aware of this code right here. If you click on this code, you will get special access to their Podcast U, a course creation tool that teaches you everything you need to know of how to create a podcast. That's what we're going to talk about today, swapping some podcast stories. I think you're going to love it. I love these two women, and let me get to the show. Action. Rachel, Monica, how are you?
Good.
So good. We're so excited to be here.
I'm giddy. I had a nice long therapy day. I think I smell like therapy, but I was just giddy about this, and I apologize to the last couple of clients who will never know when we filmed this, but I was maybe not as present as I should have been.
You can send us the bill.
Okay, I will. No, thank you. But I'm so grateful to have both of you on here, and I haven't done this before. And we're going to talk about podcasting. We're going to talk about podcasting and mental health, which I think is a meta, as the kids say, because we all have podcasts that touch upon mental health. So,
yes,
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then I really, I should bury the lead. I'm giving away the farm or any of the other things, and we're going to talk about your podcast, which I am just giddy about because I get a lot of people, and I'm curious. Maybe we start there. Do you have? Obviously, you do because you created podcast. I was going to say, do you have people that contact you regularly and say, "How do I start a podcast?"
Yes, that's why we started our course.
Exactly right. So tell me more about that. Yeah.
Well, because we had so many messages between the two of us, and that honestly became a part-time job at one point of just trying to genuinely help people, but just not being able to tell them in a bite-sized direct message or a 1-minute voice memo back to them. This is how you start a podcast. Blah, blah, blah. Like it's a lot more intensive.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I just said it really is. And I tried the same where I would try to create some Google Doc. I would try to do some copy and paste. But then it leads to more and more questions, and it does. It's overwhelming. And cause I don't know, Rachel, what was that like for you? I mean, would you try to keep up on those?
Yeah. I mean, I try to offer help where I can, but like Monica said, it is just so much more intense than what you can teach in just a quick voice memo. And I want to go into all the complexity and the nuance and everything with people, and you can't do that over Instagram. And, I do think podcasting is becoming more and more popular. It is. I don't just think that. It is. Research shows that it is. It's just such a great medium, and it's, people are really drawn to it now. And so more and more questions were coming in. So we thought we would make these courses, and really particularly for women who are like us, in that they don't have like business or marketing background. They don't have, they're not even trying to use their podcast to promote their business. They just have a message they want to share, because that's how both Monica and I got started. Is we were stay-at-home moms, former teachers. We love to teach, but we were stay-at-home moms who just felt this message on our heart, and we didn't know it would turn into a business or anything else. We just wanted to start sharing that message. And so our courses are really for women like that, who are busy moms, who are just kind of have this nagging idea, and they want to know if they could turn it into something, So that's what we created it for.
I love the fact that you both started just to share a message. And I feel like some of the emails I will get are people that basically say, "Hey, do you make money with your podcast? Because I would like to have one, and I would like to have money." And I feel like that is not the right way to go. And
it's not.
Right. And I feel the similar. I just wanted to share a lot of things I felt like were repetitive that I was hearing in therapy. And I thought that would be a really fun thing to do. So
making money is great, but podcasting has to be about the heart behind it and what you are really there for. Yeah. And that's why I think that's why we love it so much. It's given so much back to both of us, and in turn given back so much to our families and our responsibilities.
Yeah. Hey, so tell me if I can ask just a few just basic questions I would love to know about both of you and your podcast journey. How long did you think about starting a podcast before you started?
Rachel?
Oh, she's deferring to me because I waited. I had the idea for my show down to like the format, the 3 in 30 format, for at least 2 years before I actually did it. And I really do think that it was perfectionism and fear and imposter syndrome that was holding me back. And I just thought, I want it to be perfect. I don't know how to do this. Will anybody listen? And then finally, I think I really got tired of feeling disappointed in myself.
Okay.
Like every day that went by that I wasn't doing it, even though I wanted to, and it was so heavy on my heart, I couldn't live with that disappointment in myself anymore. And so I was like, we're just doing this. We're starting this. But it was over 2 years that I thought about it before I did it.
Wow. And I have to tell you, I was the same. I bought all my equipment, and then which is so ridiculous now, I bought things I never have used because I thought I must buy all this equipment, and then that will force me to start a podcast, and it didn't work that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Monica, how long did you wait?
I was kind of in a different boat because at that point in my life, I had a huge period of time where I was not acting on the things I wanted and deeply yearned to do.
Mm.
And that I was going through an early midlife crisis. And I suddenly started to do all the things that I had thought about doing for like 8 or more years.
Mm.
And so it was almost like I had some seeds of inspiration about it. But it was like we were driving home from San Diego one day, unexpectedly, kid puked, had to leave the vacation really early. And you had 10 hours to kill.
Yeah.
And I turned to my husband and said, I'm going to start a podcast. And by the time I was home, I had the equipment. I had research on Google. It still took a few months, but I was at that point in my life in the ready, fire, and then aim
Love that
place
phrase.
of being. And, I've made a ton of mistakes as a result. So I don't necessarily recommend that either, which is what we hope to save people from, those mistakes. But I will say that, just doing the thing has been, even though it was so messy and, oftentimes bad, it still has helped me so much feel like I am being who I want to be. Like I'm doing things that I want to do. And that's helped me in ways I can't even explain to you.
No, I love it. I love what you're talking about, doing the thing. My favorite therapy book is called The Confidence Gap. It's about acceptance and commitment therapy. And the whole title is about, we often say, well, when I get the confidence, then I'll do the thing. And it's saying, no, do the thing to get the confidence. And
Yes.
that's really scary, right?
That's been like the last 5 years of my life. And I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah. I feel like in preparing for tonight, I was thinking a little bit in preparing for this interview about how podcasting has helped my mental health. And one of the things that I thought about was I feel like it has helped me build so much more emotional resilience than I had before, because so many things go wrong. And are you going to throw in the towel and are you going to give up, or are you going to keep going and keep trying with this podcast and this message and this dream that you have? And looking back to the beginning to now, I'm like, holy cow, like things that happen now where I like accidentally hang up on a really big deal guest that happened to me recently. I'm like 150 plus episodes in, and this is like my dream guest, and I accidentally hung up on her. And as before, I would have completely spiraled, and it would have been like, you are a moron. How could you have done that? And just berating. And I when I realized what I had done, I literally started laughing. I wasn't even mad. I was just like, that's so ridiculous that I just did that. And then I just called her right back and said, I'm so sorry. And we just kept going. And afterwards I thought, holy cow, I've built so much emotional resilience by doing hard things over and over and over. And I've developed self-compassion through being a podcaster and putting myself out there that I didn't have before.
No, I love that. I was going to ask some of the questions I had. And by the way, are you guys okay if I do a little bit of a live thing here? I do not do this. I am an old man. I will do throw this live. Is that good?
Yeah,
try that?
For sure.
Okay. But okay, I don't even know if I know how to do this, which is, it's apparently I'm live. Okay. So Monica, have you had some of those similar things where you hang up on somebody or you just make a pretty big move? Yeah.
Countless. I've had so many mistakes. I was thinking about that too, like in terms of mistakes. Like I started my podcast knowing I wanted to talk about self-development, but then I learned quickly that it actually was about mental health so much too. So that became a big connection for me. But in the same process of learning this emotional resiliency, I've learned that I really still have a hard time being criticized or thinking of future criticism that will come up, whether it's something the guest has said or something that I have said or our vantage point on things. Like a lot of how I think about things are not agreeable to people. And that has been a huge thing for me to have to face too. Like I need to be willing to accept that not everyone's going to love me.
Yeah. That's hard though,
And
right?
that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has been hard. I'm still dealing with it on a day-to-day basis, but it's been really helpful that way too. So I've had lots of guests that have said some things that I agreed with and I kept it in, and other people certainly haven't. And that's when I've gotten the critiques and things like that. And I've had to learn how to deal with it better.
Okay, so what's it been like? I mean, I know at the beginning of my own podcast, I would say, send an email. That would be great. I remember getting the first couple of emails thinking that's really cool. And now it's to the point where there's a lot of emails and I feel like I can't get back to them. I mean, do you find that to be the case? Do you try to get back to people with that ask questions, or what's that been like?
I managed to get back to everybody, but only because I have an assistant that helps me.
Okay.
And if it weren't for that, then there's no way. But yeah, it's really important to me to get back to people who ask their questions. So I've just prioritized that in my business, but I know not everybody does. So I don't know. What about you, Monica?
My question was, this for podcasting questions or just questions in general?
I'd say podcasting questions or things that came up from episodes or
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really good at ignoring a lot of emails that do not matter.
Okay.
But when it comes to like someone from the community, someone who has a question in mind, whether it's podcasting or this thing came up, I mean, that's the heart of what we do, just with our own work. But yeah, for podcasting in general too, like we have a weekly email that goes out for free for everybody, and we pour a ton into that too, which has also been another way to kind of help people. But yeah, like sometimes that can be hard to keep on top of, for sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
Email is my Achilles heel in many ways.
I totally know what you mean. Those like form letters that you get from people, like those can be ignored, but heartfelt.
We get a lot of copy and paste.
Yes.
Right? Well, and Rachel, I think it's exactly what you're talking about. Those ones that are heartfelt, that you do a particular episode that has really touched someone. And I feel like that at times can be difficult.
Yeah. Well, and especially with you being a therapist.
Yeah.
I'm sure people email you kind of wanting or needing therapy, and it's just so hard to know what you can possibly say back in just a short little email,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're in a unique position there. Nobody expects me to know, when they email me, they don't expect me to have all the answers. So I can just say, you're doing great, and encourage them.
I will start forwarding them your way, right? I will say, no, my good friends, Rachel and Monica have some great ideas here.
Yeah, so Rachel could
we'll
solve
just reverse here. Like you send people to us for podcasting, and we'll send them to you for therapy. It works.
Yes.
Good. Hey, so tell me, have you guys had any experiences where the equipment hasn't worked, where you've missed an entire interview or anything like that?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
Tell me stories.
Well, okay, so I was interviewing Paul Cardall, who is this amazing musician. He's a pianist. He has billions of downloads. I'm not saying millions, billions of downloads on Spotify. And he was doing this incredible campaign. It was actually an album to help those prevent suicide. And he had these like famous country singers, and we were all supposed to be on the call. It was the first time I used Zoom. Everybody knows how to use Zoom right now. Everybody.
Yeah.
So
this was a few years ago.
This was
before everybody knew.
Yes. This was like 6 months ago. Still nobody knew. I still had to explain Zoom to people. So, but 2 years ago was my first time. And not only did we get bumped off like 3 times, every time I dragged the recording over to the editing equipment, it somehow like blended different people's voices together. It dropped calls all together. It was a nightmare. But that was just one of those examples, like, crap hit the fan.
Yeah.
And I think Rachel has many of those herself.
Yeah. I definitely have experiences where, like my microphone wasn't on, and so like the sound quality, I mean, it's not like it missed the recording completely, but like some of my favorite, most important episodes, I think I did 2 episodes with my sister about mental health, about depression, and women tell me all the time, like those are the episodes that like saved their lives. And neither of our microphones run, so the sound quality is really poor, and I sometimes am so frustrated that those episodes that are so important had that error. But then again, it goes back to like, well, the message is what matters, and I'm not perfect, and it's okay. So just forgiving yourself and moving on.
Yeah. Are there episodes that either one of you have done that surprised you with the feedback? I mean, things that really resonated that you didn't anticipate would?
Yes. I'm trying to think a little bit more about the specifics about like an episode that really surprised me. I think my first episode that really surprised me was when I talked to Dr. Jennifer Finlayson Fife. It was my 11th or 14th episode, like very new.
Hmm.
We just wanted to talk about perfectionism. And that one took off in ways I never could have predicted. I think it probably almost has 100,000 downloads by itself
Wow.
because it got to the heart of perfectionism in ways that neither of us expected to resonate with people. I mean, she was just doing me a favor.
Yeah.
Like she really was doing that with the goodness of her heart. So that one shocked us both with the reception. But again, this kind of comes back to what Rachel said. Like at the end of the day, it's not really about you.
Hmm.
It's not about like making money. It's about having a bigger purpose. And when you show up that way, I think sometimes, and you know, rarely, but they're gifts when they happen, you have some magic that kind of just happens for people. So that was one that people have resonated with for years. And again, it had nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Rachel, how about you?
I think sometimes it surprises me. Like I will sometimes do, so my podcast is for moms, but I sometimes will do like more of like a social justice type topic.
Okay.
And I always sort of assume that like those won't get downloaded as much. I know that it's not as probably as appealing to the everyday mom as like dealing with tantrums. Like she needs dealing with tantrums. She may not need how to help refugees or something like that.
Okay.
So what is surprising when I recently looked at my downloads, my most downloaded episode I've on my entire show is how to compassionately help those experiencing homelessness.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what?
Incredible.
Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, I'm like, that topic, really? Like, it just seemed so like not what I was expecting from my audience, but also like what I should have been expecting from my audience because they are such compassionate, kind women. And I aired it around Christmas time, December last year. And I don't know if people were really in the mode where they were searching for that or why exactly that one, but I was thrilled to see that topic is what had resonated really deeply more than anything else that I've aired.
Yeah. That is amazing. I went on a homeless advocate YouTube deep dive one weekend in a hotel, and now my YouTube channel is full of videos about helping homeless people. And so it is fascinating. It's funny that you bring that up. I have to tell you a very quick story that just popped in my head was one of the episodes I thought would be very well received of mine. It was Ralphie Jacobs with parenting. But it was literally released the day after our church had decided to do a fast on social media.
Oh yeah,
that's one I never quite delivered the way I'd hoped it would.
That has happened to me, I think, every time too. I'm like, dang it.
Right. Exactly.
Well, there's always something like, you know, right before we launched Podcast You the last time, we had like we were together at a conference for a week and we'd like worked so hard and we were ready to launch this thing. And then coronavirus, the pandemic hit like that weekend. And we were like, can we really launch this program right now? It felt like the timing felt off and we didn't want to push it too hard because it felt insensitive. It's just like, you just never know what is going to happen. And so again, going back to that, like you just have to continue doing your work, not for the download numbers or for the money, because none of that is guaranteed because there's all these random things that get thrown in there. And so, you just got to do it because you know you want to and because you believe in it.
You know, way back in my former life, before therapy, I was in the world of high tech. I did PR, sales, marketing, and we were presenting at Macworld San Francisco, a big trade show. And I was doing a big press release, and I was gonna meet the media, and this was our first time doing this. And the very first spot after the keynote was available, so I thought this is gold. So I grabbed it, and then learned that Steve Jobs always went late, and so literally no one showed up at all. So that's what I always remember, where I thought this is my moment, and I feel like there have probably been times where that happens on a podcast as well. Okay, I'd love to talk more about that because you guys do make it look so easy at this point. You're pros, you're podcast pros, but I love how early on you were talking about you're targeting with Podcast You, moms, a lot of stay-at-home moms. And so I know there's imposter syndrome, fear there.
Sure.
Talk about how you both overcame that.
Well, I think it's still an ongoing thing. I think it creeps up and rears its ugly head here and there. I just dealt with it big time this weekend again. I think for me, it's more about the challenge to remove your worth from how the show does. You have your heart about it. You know the message, you know your why, and you lean into that. And then you do your best to not let that creep in of you saying my worth, like how I am as a person, how valuable I am, and what I do depends on how many people show up and listen or how well an episode goes. And a quick example I have of that is a little over a year ago, I decided I really wanted to change how I edited my show. So it sounded, I just love NPR.
I remember this.
shows.
Okay. Yes.
You know this.
I know.
And people are going to know why. And this is where I like go, oh, just embarrassment. But listen, like, okay, so really quickly, I wanted to embed some music. I wanted to make it sound more like NPR. I don't know how to describe it, like First American Life, like the interviews with music and sound bits. And like, wow, I was so excited about it. I experimented on a really lovely guest, and his name is Tony. And it's you. And can we just say that episode was terrible? Like how I edited it.
I didn't even know, because you were apologetic, and that was an episode I was sharing with people, because we talked about acceptance and commitment therapy. We talked about emotionally focused therapy, right?
Yeah, weirdly, even with my botched editing job, it is still one of my most favorite episodes. And like what you discuss in that episode has stuck with me forever. So again, like the goodness will transcend.
Yeah.
But that is where I had to say, I don't have to be NPR. But I also had to I also had to take a step back and say, my worth isn't like, I'm allowed to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I'm learning from this. And now I'm going to just pivot back to what I know I can do and do really well and get back to the heart of what I'm doing. And again, if I had made that mean so much about me, I think I would have just hung up my podcasting hat and never done it again.
I would have been the final episode.
Yeah. You would have been. It would have been a great finale with what you shared, but not with the editing. And even Rachel and I remember we like talked after, and I was like, what do you think about that new editing? And she was so kind. But yes, I think we both agreed that wasn't really good.
Okay. By the way, real quick, when you just looked up to your right, and it looked like a Brady Bunch kind of thing where you were looking up at Rachel. It was very nice.
Oh, yeah. I'll do that.
Right. Okay. Exactly. Rachel, how about, what's that been like for you then? The
imposter syndrome.
Just like imposter syndrome and everything. I feel like everybody faces it, everybody. And everybody thinks that no one else is facing it. And
I don't mean to make up, but can I tell you, I've worked with politicians, professional athletes, CEOs, all these, and it is common. It is there in the highest of offices. It is there, imposter syndrome.
Yes,
unless
I know.
the person is a delusional narcissist, but that's a whole other story. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's so easy to look at other people and think like they're nailing it, they're rocking it, they have it all together.
It's easy for them.
Yes, it's easy for them, or that was handed to them and they didn't have to work that hard for it. You know, like we just make up all these stories when really people are just people. And so everybody feels it. I do think that that people, depending on their innate personalities, may have varying degrees of it.
Sure.
I think some people naturally have more imposter syndrome than others, but everybody feels it. And like Monica said, it's not like it just goes away. I think it just manifests in different ways. Monica interviewed a guest, Patrice Washington. Didn't she say, Monica, like new level, new devil?
Yeah,
or something like that.
That's
whenever, like, so I don't really feel imposter syndrome anymore when I'm recording with guests because I've just done that enough times.
Yeah.
But now I'm doing different things like teaching Podcast You and different things that are new. As long as you continue to push and challenge yourself, you are going to feel some imposter syndrome. You're going to feel anxiety. You're going to feel all those feelings all over again that you thought you were done with because new level, new devil. But the only other option is to stop growing.
Yeah.
Like if you never want to feel that, then that means that you have to stay in your comfort zone and never push yourself. And that's not good either, you know? Mm-hmm. So you'll never get to a point, I don't think, where you have it made and you don't have to struggle anymore. You're
Yeah.
just going to keep kind of leveling up and learning new things. And as you get more and more emotionally resilient, you're going to have to take on harder things in order to challenge yourself. So
I love
that's
it.
been my experience.
I was telling you guys before we started about this national radio show I went on Sunday night. And that one was one where I had not let myself stop and think about it. And then when I was sitting there ready and I'm hearing in the headphones and I'm coming up next, I freaked out. I did. I had to do some nice little breathing exercises, and then
Was it live? It was airing
live nationwide.
Wow.
And my first joke was a dud. I mean, and he didn't respond, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is bad. And I even said, hey, that joke didn't land, and then that didn't land either. And but then we rallied, so it was okay. But I love that new level, new devil, because going into it, I maybe did think, this is fun. I do podcasts, I can do national live radio, why not? But it ended up being okay. Yeah, no, that's good.
You learn. You just keep learning.
Yeah. So, okay, talk about Podcast U. I mean, this is what I'm really excited about. Again, if anybody's kind of just joining on the live stream, that's kind of fun to do. We get people that ask constantly, and man, bless their hearts, they want just a quick answer of, hey, how can I start a really big podcast that gets lots of downloads and maybe even makes money? Can you shoot me back an email and let me know all those things? And so
this is funny.
Okay.
Rachel and I just spent a whole weekend working on Podcast U, and we're seeing so many podcast courses pop up all over the internet right now, which is good because, podcasting is great and more people should be doing it. But what we believe about podcasting is counter to a lot of how it's being marketed.
Okay.
Here's how to have millions of downloads overnight. Here's how to make six figures. Here's how it's easy. And in 30 days, you can be a podcaster.
That's the messaging we're seeing. And
that's the messaging that we're seeing. That's not our messaging. Our messaging is that it's going to be an up and down road, but you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And here's how. And we give more specifics, but it really goes more to the heart of what people are doing and why than just like these outcomes that are, they're getting sold.
Yeah.
Which it was a little different. Maybe it's not quite, quote unquote sexy of marketing, but the heart of what we do speaks more than just selling things to people. We really want them to succeed. We want women like us who are normal, everyday moms who have gifts that they haven't even tapped into yet, who have like a voice they haven't even tapped into yet, and have a message that they feel called to at least think about more and talk to their people about, and then develop their voice along the way. And I mean, that's what it's done for us. So that's what we want for our community of women. And we don't need millions of them to sign up.
Yeah.
We need the women that this world needs to become podcasters, because we think the world needs these women's podcasts.
Yeah. Do you feel like people need to know already what they're going to talk about? I mean, do most people come into it knowing, or do they just know, I want a podcast, I want to speak?
I think most people who come to us have some inkling of a direction.
Okay.
I don't think that it has to be like nailed down to the point. Like I told you, mine was like, I knew format, I knew everything, but I think that's unusual. I think most people who come to us know, like, I'm really interested in this, and I would want my podcast to be about this topic, but they haven't honed that yet. They haven't figured out all the specifics. And then within the Podcasting 101 course that Monica teaches, there's a lot of help with that, kind of narrowing in and figuring out your niche and your purple cow, which is something that Seth Godin teaches about, how to make something about your podcast or your product remarkable. Like in a sea of brown Jersey cows that nobody would comment on, there's a purple cow, and everybody's like, oh, look at that. That's different. And how you can do that with your podcast. You have to have something that's a little different that makes you stand out. And we help you kind of figure out what that thing is. So I do think most people don't come into our course like just with no idea what direction, but you certainly don't need to know exactly yet when you join. And then we kind of help you narrow it down.
No, I like that. I know Monica, and some of the stuff that you and I have talked about, I'm a big fan of figuring out what someone's values are. There are values that are unique to them. And I know whenever I get a chance, I've got to speak at a couple of podcast festivals, and I love talking about, if you don't speak to something that is in line with your values, then you're not going to feel very authentic. And at that point, then I feel like people start to panic and they start to just try to pick whatever it is that they can talk about in hopes that then, something will stick. And I feel like, man, that's kind of the opposite approach or way to go.
Definitely.
Yes. And I think that's really true too for monetization. We were talking about how it's not easy to monetize a podcast, and to figure that out, people want it to be easy. But when you start getting desperate about, well, I just want to make money, so I'll just take whatever opportunities or ads, and they're completely not aligned with you or with your audience and what they want, well, you really lose the trust of your listener.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a short game to do that, to just accept whatever. You have to hold out, and you have to stay and say, I'm going to find something really aligned that feels good to me in a way to monetize this, instead of just going for the easy stuff, maybe earlier on.
Or the biggest guests, or people that you think, oh, that is a huge influencer, I want them on my show. And then they come and it connects in no way to what your audience needs and what they were looking for. So that's a lot of what we talk about too, both in 101 and 201, how to really connect to what your audience needs. And that's what we can help them refine. And then serving and serving and serving. That's a lot of what Rachel talks about in 201. If you want to grow your show, if you want to start a show and you want to grow it, serve. Serve and serve and serve.
No, I love that. I do. So that one, do you guys, how often do you kind of, I don't know if the phrase swing for the fences on guests or that sort of thing? Do you do that very often, or what's your guys' process of finding and booking guests?
A little complicated.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Go for it, Rachel.
I think at first everybody I asked felt like swinging for the fence,
Yes. Your best friend, a person in your neighborhood, like that was scary.
Yeah.
Yes. And especially those people that I, admired online, like that was, so scary. But I think you start to realize over time that there's actually, most people like being featured on podcasts. It's good press for them. And so it's surprising who will say yes.
Yeah.
There's some people that you think like, oh, they're way out of my league. And then they say yes. And you're like, wow, I never expected that. So it's like everything else we've been talking about. I think it gets easier. You get more confident over time, as well as you get more resilient to like, well, what's the worst they can say? No, or not respond at all. Like, so to answer your question, it's been a while since I've really swung for the fence. Like I have a few people in my mind, like I would love to interview John Gottman.
Yeah.
Like that'd be amazing.
It's like, but that is a major swing for the fence. I would love to interview Melinda Gates. Like
oh my gosh.
I have like a few people in my mind that I'm like, that would be, and like that I so highly doubt that either of them would ever do it. Yeah. But it's kind of like,
sitting
why
here
not?
saying they are going to be on your show now. For sure.
That's right. Although now I'm thinking, I need to reach out to them. I need to beat Rachel. I'm totally kidding.
The race is on.
Right.
But so I think it's good to have like a few people like that and why not try, why not ask them? And I really wanted Donald Miller to be on my podcast. I don't know if either of you know who that is, but
I'm not familiar with him. No.
He is an author that I've loved for like a decade. I loved him when he was an author. Now he's like a marketing guru. He like pivoted. But he's a really big deal. He does Story Brand. I don't know if you've
exactly. Okay.
Yeah. And like I reached out and it was a total like long shot and I never got any response. And it's fine. It's fine. So
I've reached out to
try
so
again someday.
Oh, me too. Once a week, I at least reach out to a couple of people that I think will most likely not get back to me, and I'm usually correct.
Yes. and that's kind of part of the fun almost, right? Like I, not to go into processes here, but I have an Excel spreadsheet and I'm keeping track of some people who, some are total like, mid-level or low influencers, just people I really love. It's not about their numbers. It's about who they are and their message. Yeah. But then I do have the, shoot for the stars kind of people that are on my running list that I will continue. Like some of mine are Greg McEwen from Essentialism and James Clear. And I love Carol Dweck, who's about the growth, mindset. Like those are my shoot for the stars people too, but it's kind of part of the fun.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So, all right, let me ask you this too then. So I love that we're talking about how it's been a good thing for your mental health to really stretch yourself. And I don't know if it's give some additional purpose and that sort of thing, but we've also talked about imposter syndrome, and have there been times where the process of podcasting has kind of been too much or has gotten you down, or, and if so, what have you done with that?
we're
Oh,
both
man.
laughing inside
Are you?
and crying
Okay.
because
Where did we begin on this?
we have needed each other, Rachel and I, desperately,
Well,
because not only have we had those moments, I can probably count on them every 2 months for myself
okay.
of feeling like, why am I doing this?
Is
Yeah.
anybody listening? Does anybody care?
Yeah.
Yeah. Disappointment over numbers or a review or something like those absolutely happen.
Hmm.
And in fact, that's one thing we've said a lot, in our emails we send out and in our courses too, and with our students, you're going to feel like quitting.
Yeah.
It's
I wanted to get to, right? It's
not,
inevitable. Yeah.
yes, it's not about if, it's when.
Yeah.
And when that happens, there are lots of things you can do. You can take a break. We've both taken breaks.
Mhm.
But a big part of it is getting back to the heart of why you're there in the first place. I'm sure Rachel can have some more advice on this as well.
Yeah, I also think having friends or a friend that you can be totally honest with who's in your same boat, who gets it. Cause like I can talk to Ryan, my husband, about podcasting disappointments and stuff, and he's very sympathetic, but
Mhm.
he doesn't do this day in and day out. Like, Monica. So Monica's my person that like I text her and I can be completely honest and tell I don't need to like hold back about the specific things that are really hard for me at that time. I can tell her like my ugly thoughts that I'm having about myself or other people, like that I wouldn't tell anybody else. But
Yeah.
like it's important to have a safe person or two or somebody that gets it. And I think this is true for whatever you do, like whatever your industry, your field, like you got to have somebody that gets it that you
Yeah.
can talk to about it.
Yeah.
That can get you through those times.
I would say bless the heart of the peanut gallery, but when you're sharing that with someone who doesn't get it, then they're going to say things like, well, then don't do it, or just give up, or it's a big deal, or, it's like, no, that's not what I want to hear. Right.
Yes. Or they might judge you for your ugly thoughts because they don't get it. They haven't been in that place. Whereas somebody who's been there understands that that's not the best of you talking. It's not the real you talking, but they can hear you out and say, yeah, it's super hard when this, and this happens. And then just having somebody hear you sometimes is all you need. And then you're like, okay, I can do this now,
No, I love that. I love that. That's one of my favorite parts about therapy at times is that, I have some people that come in and I'm thinking, all right, let's get some tools or let's talk about, diffusion of thoughts or expansion of emotions. And they're like, no, I just want you to hear me. I just want you to, I want you to tell me that stinks and you're gonna be okay. And I always think, okay, I love that. I mean, that's really fun to do. Yeah.
Well, and especially with some things I'm sure you hear in therapy that these are things that people cannot tell anyone else.
Yeah.
That like whatever that issue might be, they literally can't talk to their sister or whoever about this thing that's really personal that's going on in their life or their marriage or their kid's life. And so to have a therapist who's just a third party that you can just talk to who will say that is so hard, I think that's a huge gift to people to have that person.
Yeah, no, I love it. I do. I think now I've gone back to this radio appearance twice, but I think it's because I'm realizing now that you guys understand. I got home and I made this joke about, I think one of my kids said, what were you doing? And I was like, national radio show. He's like, oh, okay. Like, like everybody's doing Sunday night, I guess.
Exactly.
Right. So it was kind of funny. So, all right, tell me more about then structure, setup, time frame, podcast you. What do people need to know? I'm going to send everyone in the entire world there any email I get of how to podcast. And sorry, you're caught up in an ADD thought and you don't even know it right now. But I just want to put out there, when I had a guy named Dan Radin on my podcast, and he's the CEO of Oxbus, which was this podcasting kind of a platform of sorts that help people put these together. I found it interesting where he talked about, and we've just crossed 1 million podcasts. You guys probably know that, right? That there's over 1 million podcasts out there now. And at the time, he was telling me, this was several months ago, where there were, I think it was 800,000 at the time. And he said, so he had gotten investors together to put this company together. And I thought there was some data he shared that was fascinating. And he said that now there's 10 million YouTube channels, for example. And so he said that podcasting right now is at the forefront of where YouTube is now, and that people that get in now have the likelihood of, with consistency and a good voice, and I mean, not like a speaking voice, but if they are finding their voice, that those are those people, when we look now at YouTube channels that have millions of subscribers and millions of downloads, and you think, how did these guys get started? And they were there, at that kind of beginning. So I mean, I really feel like even though there's a million, and that sounds like a lot, we're just the beginning. We're at the beginning. So I mean, there's never been a better time if somebody is thinking about starting a podcast. I've been telling you, get in now. I mean, get in, learn it, go through the growing pains that we're talking about, be consistent. Yeah. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about. So yeah, talk about Podcast You.
Well, I mean, Podcasting 101 has that in mind. Our goal is for not people to just, complete the course and start their podcast. We want them to create a podcast that lasts, that sticks around. Yeah. And, that's where we start at the foundation of who they are and what the show is about and who they're serving. And then we build from there, and we go into a ton of the how-to. I mean, it's all there. We have resources. We put templates in how we reach out to guests, how we pitch people. Okay. We put in processes. We show them behind the scenes, but we do a lot of development of the structure of their show and what it's really for and how to serve their audience. So that's, 101. And again, that's the nutshell version of it. Yes. 201, Rachel?
Yeah. And I'll tell you more about, let me just tell you the concept of 201 first, and then we'll go into more logistical things. So 201 is really the metaphor that I use when I designed the 201 Growing Your Podcast course. I use the metaphor of a tree and how you have to start by strengthening the roots before you try to broaden the reach. Because if you try to broaden the reach and you don't have solid roots, then the tree just falls over. Yeah. And so how growth is really about growing deeper as well as growing broader. And so the first half of the course is really about more organic growth. Like if your podcast is excellent, people will share it. Yeah. And so that's what you have to start with is organically, like, are you serving your listener? Do you know your listener? Are your episodes set up in a way that really speaks to your ideal customer or client or listener? And then in the second half of the course, we talk more social media marketing and all of those kind of strategies.
Collaborations.
Collaborations, different things. I think people come to like a course on growth thinking like, give me all the quick hacks, the quick tips. But that's the branches, and you got to start with the roots. And so that's really how I set it up. And so it's 9 lessons about all different types of podcasting growth. And we have them set up so that you can watch the video, you log in and watch the video of the courses. But we have a new feature that we're really excited about where we put all of the lessons, the audio files on a private podcast feed so that people can just listen from their favorite podcast app on the go. Because I know I buy online courses that I never actually sit down and carve out the time to take, you know? Yeah. And so we've designed this with a busy mom in mind. Like anything we can do to make it so that she'll actually get through the course and get her podcast out into the world or grow her podcast if she already has one. That's our goal. So that's how it's set up. And we're teaching, I don't know when this episode's going to air, Tony, but we're teaching.
Yeah. Okay. I want to time this right because I'm excited about this. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we are, because we're teaching 4 free classes in September for people who just want to get a taste of the content and the first, Monica's class is called, what is your class called?
3 Things You Must Know to Start a Podcast.
Okay. And then mine is called 3 Reasons Your Show Isn't Growing and What to Do About It. Okay. And we will both be teaching those courses, and then we'll tell you more about
free classes.
Those free classes, and then we'll tell you more about the full courses. So we'll send you all the dates, and you can put those in the show notes, Tony, and the link to it. But they're happening in the last half of September. These free classes.
Right. Yeah. So we'll give people plenty of time.
And we have a killer bonus that we're doing with those classes. Should we tell them on the air, Monica?
Yeah, let's tell them what it is for sure. Go for it.
What do we got?
So we are going to do, anybody who signs up with this round with those free classes, if you attend those free classes, you'll get a 4-part course, how to monetize your podcast. Okay. Because that is what everybody is asking, everybody wants right now. And we touch on it in our 101 and 201 course, but we knew that it would require an entire course. So we are going to teach that live to the students who sign up this round. It'll just be it'll be their bonus for enrolling. And so if people get in on that, then that will be an awesome bonus that we're excited to offer.
Yeah. And not to continue this for another I don't want to keep taking your time, but
No, you're good.
we talked about community earlier, how you need people.
Yeah.
One of the big things we love about this is they get lifetime access to a private Facebook group of fellow podcasters who were in the program and taking the courses. And the connections that they have made there, the way they've collaborated, the way they've supported each other has been so incredible to see. And that's only going to grow and grow more with time. Like fellow moms, mostly, who get you and are in the same thing and trying to do the same things as you. So that is another big thing. And we also do lifetime access to the course. So anytime we change the course,
Okay.
which we already did for Podcasting 101, because podcasting changes, just keeps changing. You get that.
Yeah.
You never have to pay for it again.
No, that's nice. I know this might be a silly question, but I think this is very applicable because Rachel, if you remember, I petitioned you to be the first guy on 3 and 30
Yes.
Takeaways for Moms, right?
Yes.
So I can't lie. When I logged in, I was planning on stopping by the Facebook group. If there is a dad that is interested, is that okay?
We do have a dad.
Yes.
I think we actually have two.
Okay.
We have two dads. They're totally welcome.
They're welcome.
Yes, they're totally welcome. So yeah, and Tony, I think my grandpa had been on the show.
That's right. I think.
And then you've been on a couple different times.
Yeah.
And then maybe one or two other men. So you are in the elite male representatives on 3 and 30.
I feel very honored by that because that is, I don't know, I very much enjoyed those episodes. That was good.
So did I. They were awesome. So
Yeah.
you're definitely a fan favorite on 3 and 30.
Oh, that's very kind. I'm so grateful that you guys were willing to take the time to come on here. I'm glad we got to talk about mental health and podcasting. I don't know, any other kind of funny stories to share before we leave? And I'll give you time to think for a second. I will tell you two things that I was thinking about in preparation. So start thinking, right? One of them was just I did have one where a wonderful, amazing woman had asked me to talk about pornography and kids, and I felt so good about the recording. It was one of these where it just flowed back and forth, and I could not wait to promote that podcast. And she let me know the next day that she had forgot to record it. So that was one of those where I felt so bad. And then I will just say I did have another one where someone I did not do my research. I guess I don't want to say anything negative, but I didn't do my research. And then I went on a particular podcast only to find out right before that we would be doing a past life regression, and that we would be finding out what I had been in a previous life, and that I would share my story of when I realized that I had previous lives. So that
were you a king in your previous lives? Like, what'd you
honestly,
discover?
I was kind of just a nobleman. I mean, it wasn't too fancy, but that one was something else. I guess, and then one more on that one. I think these typically have a theme of I didn't do my research. So there was another one where I then early on reached out to somebody that they had said they were an author, and so then right before I go on to record, I think I need to I'll go buy their book, and I will very quickly skim it, and I'll have very smart. Now I do a much better job. I will actually read someone's book and stuff. So then I learned as I go to search that it wasn't like they had a real book, but there was one of those sites where like Wattpad, or where you can just kind of upload some pages. And so it was maybe 40 pages double spaced, and wasn't a particularly exciting story. So, but I carried through with the interview. I did not end up using it as a podcast, but it was a good experience. So there's my kind of embarrassing moments, I think.
You're learning. You have better ones than me. I don't know if I have any like that. I think one of the funnier, I'm trying to think, because there have definitely been some, but one of the funnier moments was when my second episode ever was with my little sister.
Okay.
As it would be, right? Like that's who you start with.
Yes.
And thank goodness, because this happened. So when I said, "So Laura, welcome to 3 and 30. She said it really weird. She was like, she was caught off guard. So she was like, hey, hi. Yeah, good to be here," or something. So we laughed about it. And then I said, "Let's just try that again, and I'll just clip it out." And so she said, "Hi, well, like, great to be here." And then she's like, "Let me just try it a bunch of different ways." So then she was like, "Hey, it's so good to be here. Hi." So she did it like all these different ways. And I forgot I like moved them down on the track to like pick the one that I wanted, and I forgot to ever delete them. And so this is my second episode ever, and it aired, and I'm listening to it, you know, in the car thinking like, I'm a podcaster. I'm so legit. And I'm listening to this intro. My intro music is going, and all you hear is my sister with all these different variations of, hi, it's good to be here. Hello, it's good to be here. And I was like so mortified. Of course, only like 20 people were listening to my podcast at that time. Right. It wasn't a big deal, but I was mortified. My sister was mortified. I remember trying to go home and fix the file and just realizing I'm not quite as legit as I thought I was. So no, that's my funny story.
Okay, Monica, before we do, Rachel, do you remember what we did that was really funny? We recorded. Oh, yes. We recorded 2 episodes back to back, and you said it's going to be like in a month or 2. The second one will be. And so then you came on and I said, it feels like it was only yesterday, you know, and I think both like.
Well, I said in there, I'm like, Tony, welcome back. And you said, it feels like it was only yesterday that we did this. And I tried to keep going and keep, you know, and not laugh. And I'm like, we had so much great feedback on your first episode. And then we both just like busted out laughing. We're like, we can't do this.
No.
So we had to re-record that part.
Yeah, that was right. I just remembered that. That was fun. That was great. Okay, Monica. Funny story.
Oh, I don't think I have like such funny stories like you. I mean, I've had episodes where I forgot to put the sound back on a whole track, so all they hear is music and no introduction and no narrating. One of my big first guests was Brooke White, and I was so thrilled to have her on. And the music suddenly came in the middle of her talking, and it was like over her voice. You couldn't hear her, just like little things like that. But something we've discovered recently, Rachel and I, is that I have a knack of saying idioms wrong.
Really? I love this.
Happens. And I really feel like if I could just pay someone to go back through the 280 plus episodes I've done and make a collection of all the idioms I've gotten wrong and just share them on the show, it would be hilarious. Like one of the ones I recently did, I said, no, right off the gate. Oh, let's talk about, I do things like that constantly.
Do you?
Yes. So we need almost like, it needs to become a drinking game. I don't know if people want to do Sprite or whatever, but it should become a drinking game.
I love that. I don't think that it's on this iPad, but I used to sit there during sessions, and when somebody would misuse something like that,
my goodness,
I would write them down. I think I have this actually.
My list. If I were your client, my list would be endless.
Yeah. And I feel I've never talked about this before, but I was keeping them, and I didn't know if I was going to ever use this as a book or something like that.
You should.
I really should. And I need to stop looking right now. I'll do that later, but I'm pretty sure I do, because I would hear people. I remember one of the first times where it was for all intensive purposes. I remember when there was a lot of people like to take things for granted, which is very hard
for granted.
Hard to rock, but I mean, yeah. And I'm trying to think about it. I think the good old classic one is "I could care less," right?
Yes.
Right. I love that one, and that one sometimes I want to say, well, it must not be a big deal, but I feel like it's really the moment, or
So good news, like if you're not super eloquent, you can still be a podcaster. You could. I mean, I stutter constantly. I get the idioms mixed up. All sorts of things happen.
Yeah. I have to tell you, and then I will let us go here. There's a new program that I've been playing with. I might have to tell you off air, but it is one of those where I record. You can upload the MP3 file, and then it does an amazing transcription, and it shows all the uhs and ums and whatever, and you can then just delete them manually, and then it just exports it back out. And I've only used it the last couple of times, but on the one I released today, it took out, I think it was 60 and I didn't realize I just did it right there. I stuttered, and it takes out the I, and I can get rid of one of the I's, and it's so smooth. It's kind of scary. And then on the other end, you read to it. So it has you read. I read 15 minutes of The Wizard of Oz to it. And then it's this feature called Overdub. And then you can type, and then it does a podcast of just what you typed. It's wild.
What? Yeah, this Spooky. Is all craziness.
Spooky, yeah.
New stuff.
Yeah, I've been playing with it, and it's pretty wild.
Okay,
So
you got to
it
send
makes
that
it
link to
sound,
us.
it's your voice
Oh,
doing the
yeah.
typed podcast.
Yeah, so I mean, I had to read The Wizard of Oz to it for 15 minutes one morning.
Yeah.
And I felt this is ridiculous. And then you upload it, submit it, and the next day it comes back and says, "Here's your voice." And so then you go in and I am typing to see what this podcast sounds like, and then you hit play and it says, "I am typing to see." It's crazy. There were a couple of words that I then had to go back and spell phonetically, but then it pretty much nailed it. And since that time, I felt like I was dealing with the voodoo or wizard magic, and I haven't gone back to it. But I think there's a lot that I could do with this. It's kind of frightening.
Wow.
You got to have the right accent for that, though, because with my Utah accent,
Yeah.
I mean, I confused people where I lived in California for 13 years on things I was saying. But I was like, I'm saying Phil. Milk.
Like,
come on.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Phil, like Fill or Feel?
I'm saying feel, but I say it Phil.
I know
I feel upset.
I know this one.
Anyway.
And women.
Yes, actually, that was something Rachel did have to say, like early on in our friendship. Monica, when you say woman, are you meaning plural or
One or
singular?
more,
Because
yeah.
you say it for both. And she literally had to teach me how. So
To say women.
women for plural.
Okay. I love
Have
this.
to practice it, you guys.
If anyone is still listening now.
I know.
Because I would say my family loves I learned how to say pillow instead of pillow. And I learned how to say miracle instead of miracle. So
Yes.
I've learned these things as well.
Yes.
Okay.
You and me
Crazy.
both.
Yeah. Okay. Rachel, Monica, what a blast. This was fun. I appreciate you coming on. I would love to do this again sometime.
Yeah.
Do it.
I will have all the links to podcast you, and I'm grateful for the service you are providing, because there needs to be more voices of people that want to put their voice out there and be authentic and genuine and have things to say. So I'm grateful for what you're doing.
Thank you so much for having us on, Tony.
Yeah.
You are one of the most delightful people I have
Truly.
ever met. Truly. It's such a delight to talk to you.
Ditto
I remember
here.
the first time I interviewed you, I was like, it just clicks so fast with you. And I know that you're that way with everybody that you talk to in an interview. So you really have a gift.
You leave everyone happier and better than you found them. That's for sure.
Terry, so I appreciate that. Or Terry, they are. So, okay. All right. I'm going to hit stop on the recording, but hang on one second. Thanks so much, you guys. Okay.
Thank you.